Hey guys, welcome to the top 10 best things that are going to be coming to Call of Duty Cold War Zombies this year. A lot of this stuff is coming back from the previous games, and a lot of it's actually new stuff that's coming to the game. This list is in no particular order. That being said, let's jump right into the top 10. First off on the list, we have the new perk system coming to Call of Duty Cold War. This is basically the return of the old perk system with a couple new changes. More so we'll talk about towards the end of the video, but for now let's just talk about the fact that Jug, Deadshot, Speed Cola, all of those perks will be coming back to the new Call of Duty. Meaning we don't really have to worry about the Black Ops 4 perk system anymore and all of its great features. As much as I understand why Treyarch implemented the Black Ops 4 system, it really didn't work very well. It didn't really feel like zombies, and it felt more like a weird knockoff that someone made in their basement as opposed to an actual zombies game. The only time that the Black Ops 4 perk system actually worked okay in was the Chaos maps, because it actually felt like the maps were made more so for the perks as opposed to the Aether storyline, where it just felt like they were half-assed thrown into the game and it kind of sucked. The perk machines were ugly in Aether, meanwhile in Chaos there were these really cool looking thought out designs. In the Aether maps you would walk into a room that there would have normally been a perk machine, but because there's only 4 perks total on each map on Black Ops 4, it just kind of felt empty. The maps didn't have as much life. The perk machines had no life whatsoever, like the previous perk machines. And overall it just felt very dull, empty, and kind of boring to play. There was no incentive to really work towards anything. You already had max health right off the bat, and the perks that you would get throughout the game of Black Ops 4 felt really watered down compared to the previous perks, especially since half of them were just weird remakes of the previous perks brought into the Black Ops 4 game, and they really didn't have the same feel or the same spark that the old perks did. It just kinda sucked. So the return of the new perk system, or the old perk system for that matter, in Call of Duty Cold War is honestly great news. Next up on the list, we have the addition of free DLC for the game. For those of you who don't know, Call of Duty Cold War will have free DLC throughout the entire season, so if you own the game, you own everything that Treyarch is going to put out over the next year, and this is fantastic news. We all know the feeling of hopping into Black Ops 2 or even Black Ops 3, wanting to play Der Eisendrache, Origins, Mob of the Dead, Buried even, and instead being forced to play Transit, Town, or Shadows over and over and over, just because your friends don't have the maps. As much as I love Shadows of Evil, it's really hard for newbies or people who don't really play zombies too much, just because it's really complex, and it's also a very weird map overall, so it kind of scares some people away. Of course, with the addition of the free DLC, this will totally change everything. Everyone has access to all the maps, and I think this will be a really good change for everyone, just because you don't have to shell out $15 every single time they drop a map. The only downside I see from this is just because Treyarch won't be making quite as much money from all the DLC maps, they may try a little bit less hard on the new maps and they might not be as quality. I really doubt that will actually happen just because it's from Treyarch. We all know Treyarch, they make pretty great games. I don't think it's really anything we have to worry about too much, but it is something worth talking about. In our number 3 spot, we have the return of old guns. Of course, this game takes place during the Cold War, so does Black Ops 1, so it's not really much of a surprise that some of the old guns will be coming back. But being able to finally use the commando to slay some zombies is going to feel so good. The ray gun is also coming back, of course. It's always going to be in every zombies map from now until the rest of time, pretty much. I just really hope that they make the ray gun feel good to use. In World at War and Black Ops 1, it was actually a good gun just because there weren't many better alternatives to use. Whereas in the newer games, of course, there's much better guns. Even the base guns themselves are much stronger. There's better wonder weapons, and the map meta has completely changed in the new games. And because of that, the ray gun really went on the back burner. It's not that great of a gun, but it's still fun to use. The only exception would be Black Ops 3, where the ray gun actually felt pretty great to use. I don't think they really modified the stats at all, but overall it felt much better to use versus the other games just because it looked cool, it sounded great, it shook the screen when you shot it, the rays looked fantastic. It was just a really fun gun to use in Black Ops 3. I would actually find myself pulling it from the box. Whereas in Black Ops 4, or even Black Ops 2, if I grabbed it, I'd almost rather have a wall gun, just because the ray gun isn't that strong anyway. But overall, the return of the old guns is going to be great. For our number 4 spot, we have the new loadout system. I'm a little bit iffy on this one just because Black Ops 4 had a loadout system as well, which I wasn't really a big fan of because it felt like it really ruined the progression even more for Black Ops 4. You would start out with pretty much full health and a decent, if not pretty good gun right off the bat, and you wouldn't have to worry about really anything for the first 10 rounds or so. Although I think a loadout system is great for overall progression throughout the game, like leveling up and unlocking new guns, it doesn't bode so well for in-game progression. It kind of makes it a little bit lacking just because you start out with a good gun. Whereas in the old games you had just crappy 1911 and had to work out from there. But if Treyarch actually implements this well, it'll be pretty great. One way that they seem to be adjusting for this progression issue is actually a tiered weapon system, which we'll get into a little bit more later in the video. But I know a lot of people are really happy about this progression system, this new loadout system. I think it's a great change, but I'm a little skeptical just from the past games. For our number 5 spot, we actually have a pinging system. This is one of the features that not quite as many people know about, but Cold War will be implementing a pinging system similar to some other games that are out in the market right now, and this, for zombies, will actually be pretty awesome. Apex Legends really started this thing where a lot of games have been recently adding a lot of ping systems, where you can basically ping different items around the map, and it will actually show up on your HUD labeled as that item. For example, if you ping a gun, it will show up as a gun, maybe even that specific gun, right on the HUD. Being able to ping the box, the door, something like that on everyone's HUD in the game will be really good trying to communicate across the big map. I can definitely see some annoying people in public matches just pinging the door over and over until you finally open it because they don't want to, but I think this will be a good change for Cold War, and I'm pretty excited about this feature actually. For the number 6 spot, there's actually a new system, a new Exfil system for Call of Duty Zombies, where basically at presumably any point during your game, you can exfil to leave the map without actually having to die. I think that's a great change. A lot of modded maps have actually been implementing something similar to this for quite a while now, where it's really a viable Easter egg where you can just kind of save up points and buy yourself out of the map. And of course in those modded maps there's not really a reward for exfilling, but I'm sure there's going to be some sort of reward or some sort of challenge even in the Zombies game, where maybe you exfil 50 times and you get a cool calling card or something like that. But basically you can exfil at any point during the Zombies match, that way you don't have to die. The only thing is you'll have to survive a couple rounds of really intense zombie onslaught for a little bit, but if you do manage to survive those waves, then you can actually end up exfilling out of the map. There's probably some special cutscene that plays as well. A lot of the time you get to around 30, 40, 50, and it really starts to get stale at that point. Some people want to get off, maybe you're playing solo and you want to end the game, but you don't want to just quit, and you don't want to really down yourself because that looks bad in your stats and everything. So one way you can get around this is actually the exfil system, where it kind of ends with a bang. You end with a nice adrenaline rush. It's still really fun, but you do still end up ending the game, that way you're not just dragging that game on into oblivion pretty much. This is something I'm pretty excited for. I know some people are a little bit iffy on this just because it's kind of a weird change that doesn't really need to be in Zombies, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. For the number 7 spot is the fact that Zombies will actually count towards the Battle Pass system this time. In previous games it didn't really count towards anything, and when it did, it was a really small amount. Like, you would have to grind ridiculous amounts of time to actually level up your battle pass at all in Zombies. It was pretty much not even worth it at that point. And I think Treyarch saw the issue with that and they're actually adjusting it this time. Another thing is, overall you're going to have one solid level. There's not going to be different levels for Zombies, different levels for campaign, different levels for multiplayer. Overall you're going to have one overarching level, and of course playing Zombies will up that, playing multiplayer will also up that. And it just kind of adds to the actual meshing of all the different systems now, which is great. In our number 8 spot is actually multiple maps at launch. This hasn't necessarily been confirmed by Treyarch, at least to my knowledge, but there have been a lot of leaks and a lot of people talking about it, so I really wouldn't be surprised at all. Basically what Treyarch has done in the past is they will usually launch one map, of course, just the main big map, and then that secondary map, which is usually a little bit smaller, a little bit simpler. Take Black Ops 3 for example, where you had Shadows of Evil when it dropped, and also the Giant, and both maps were honestly great. The Giant was really fun just to hop on and kind of vibe with some friends, and I really think that Cold War is going to have something similar where you have D Machine and then some other map alongside that. A lot of people are suspecting a Transit remake, but I really doubt that will actually happen, at least so early on. There's been a lot of talk about a Chernobyl map, about a Vietnam map, but we're not entirely sure quite yet, but I'm almost positive that a secondary map will launch alongside Die Maschine, largely because of how successful Black Ops 3 was. Treyarch saw this, and Black Ops 3 was definitely the most profitable zombies game that has ever come out. I really wouldn't doubt that Treyarch is probably following in the same footsteps of Black Ops 3 because it really was a successful model. In our number 9 spot, there's actually going to be traps and utility you can place. Similar to Black Ops 4, we see in the trailer that there's a sentry gun placed down, and honestly there might be a bit more that's actually added to the game that we just didn't see in the trailer. Being able to place traps like sentries and things like that isn't really an amazing feature, just because it's not so much in the zombies meta where, of course, running trains, it's kind of useless to set up a sentry, but if the sentries actually do decent damage and have a full 360-degree rotation, I could easily see a good strat where you throw down a sentry and just run trains around it in high rounds, and as long as the sentry actually deals decent damage and lasts more than 10 seconds, it actually won't be a bad idea. The system might be a little bit different for this because it actually seems more so like the sentry gun is almost like a score streak, because we see some score streak style things throughout the entire trailer, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was some sort of challenge you had to complete to unlock it. For example, get 100 headshots and you can place a sentry that lasts a couple of minutes, or maybe get 200 kills and you get a sentry gun, but it doesn't seem to be taking the place of an actual utility like your grenades, for example, in this game, which is a welcome change from Black Ops 4. In our 10th and final spot for the video, being upgradable perks and a tiered weapon system. Like I said at the beginning of the video, all of the old perks will be returning, but they're basically being overhauled, and this seems to be Treyarch's way of breaking out of the staleness of the original perk system, where now you can actually get different tiers of perks. The exact methods on how you go about this in the game is still unclear, but I guarantee it'll be some sort of challenge, or maybe it might be something as simple as just buying the perk again, maybe at an increased price. Having that available to really all of your perks as long as you can afford it, or as long as you can complete the challenges that are required, is actually really cool because it adds a lot more progression throughout the entire game. And overall, you won't just one and done with your perks, buy them and then be done with them. You actually might have to work for something to actually end up upgrading them. On that same note, we also have the tiered weapon system. Much like games like Fortnite, there's actually going to be different tiers of weapons, basically common all the way through maybe rare. From the looks of it, all of the wall weapons, or a majority of the wall weapons, will be the common or the white tier, as shown in the video I'm displaying currently. We also see different colors floating through the mystery box at different times, also indicating that you can get different tiers of different weapons through the mystery box method. One way that Treyarch will likely balance the loadout system is actually through this system, where you only start out with the common tier weapons right off the bat. That way you don't end up being pretty much OP as soon as you start. But that's going to wrap up the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Of course, if you liked the video, go ahead and leave a comment, like, and subscribe. I plan on outputting a lot of zombies content before the release of Cold War, and of course once it actually comes out, even more than that. So stay tuned. This is Noto. Have a great rest of your day.